episode of 68. Hello and welcome back. It's been a 2-month break. The DTF Podcast. Rob Dauster, John Fanta, Terrence Oglesby. I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. I thought we were going to have an unbelievable open to the show. I couldn't wait to get on here and talk to Fanta, the newly betrothed man. Show that ring, Fanta. Show that ring, John. There it is.
Join
Tio and I
in.
both crashed the wedding. I don't know if we were technically invited. We both showed up. We both had a great night. We are going to get into all of that. But we got on the Zoom call. We got ready to start recording, and Fanta he needs a moment. He needs to vent. So, Fanta, the floor is yours. Say what you need to say about your
Brownies.
I cannot believe, and I should be able to believe it, because this is now 28 years of Cleveland Browns fandom. But fellas, the Monday night game in Pittsburgh will stick with me forever for a variety of reasons. Nick Chubb, gut punch, the worst injury I've seen in a game since Kevin Ware of Louisville back in the Final Four years ago, and Rick Pitino was consoling him, and that was terrible. Nick Chubb goes down. Even after that, the Browns had multiple leads in this game. And in the fourth quarter, the Pittsburgh Steelers totaled negative yardage in the final quarter, while never getting to the red zone in the entirety of the game. When have you ever seen a team win a football game and they never possess the ball in the red zone? When it's against the Cleveland Browns, that's when.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
A despicable loss. My quarterback, who no one will have any love for, that's for damn sure. Nobody feels bad for that. My team spent money on a quarterback, fellas. I finally thought I might have somebody capable of playing the quarterback position, and here I am, a sad bastard.
Sad bastard.
Well, I'm sorry, Fanta.
I need college basketball like I need to breathe.
Well, it's great that you mentioned that, because we are going to have a nice Big East preview today. We're going to roll through all of the 6 major conferences over the course of the next 6 weeks. Do some preview stuff. It's basically 5 burning questions that we're going to ask for each league as we kind of roll through all of this. Before we do, though, we haven't been on this show and talked about realignment and the implosion of the Pac-12. We haven't been on here talking about the NCAA tournament potential expansion. I know T.O., I think, what was it, about like 6 weeks ago, you texted me and said, yeah, unpopular take, we got to expand the tournament. We're going to get into all of that. But first and foremost, I mentioned it, Fanta is a married man. Fanta is now a trophy husband. And T.O. and I were lucky enough to be at the wedding. And I got to say, T.O., I don't know where it ranks in terms of like best weddings that you've been to, but I think it's up there for top 5 for me, maybe even top 3. I had an absolute blast. It was one of those nights where I was able to drink more than I should, but I never got drunker than I should have been, right? If that makes sense. I woke up the next morning at 6 a.m. to go to a bounce house festival with my kids back in Philadelphia. I've never been more miserable than a 95-degree day on a bounce house. But yeah, it was great. I had an unbelievable time at the wedding. T.O., I think everybody there knows that you had an unbelievable time at the wedding.
I did. I did have a great time. It was fun. There was more food than I knew what to do with, more food that I couldn't try everything. Like they had the prosciutto that was over there. It was crazy. They had a prosciutto tree. There was a whole tree of ham. I didn't even know you could make ham trees. I didn't know ham grew on trees, but they had a ham tree. That's for sure. It was awesome. Like it was like everything was there. I ate 3 plates at the cocktail hour because I thought that was the food, and then we got into to the room where the reception was going to be at, and then they're like, all right, main course is about to come out. I'm like, main course? How much can I fit in? I got nothing left.
Veda, T.O. sits down and sees the food coming out and goes, wait, that wasn't dinner?
That wasn't dinner?
No. I was like, no.
I ate and drank some Casamigos and ate and drank more Casamigos. Like it was I had about as much fun as one could possibly have. And I told you, Fanta, before I got up there, I was like, I'm going to cut loose a little bit. I don't cut loose all that often. We've made trips, guys, trip after trip. We've been to New Orleans. We've been to Las Vegas. I've never really cut loose. I was like, the hell with it. I'm going to have a good time. This is John Fanta's wedding. Me and Rob had a ball.
Oh, we had an unbelievable night. So there's three moments that I think that we need to talk about from this night, Fanta. It's two of them you don't know about. So the first one is, as we were waiting for the shuttle to take us over to the reception after the ceremony, we go down to the hotel bar, and I'm like, Tio, I got your first round. Don't worry about it. And he sits there and he goes, "What's that funky bottle up on the top over there?"
he said, "I'm paying for it." I said, "You are." Yeah, you are.
Yeah, they were
on that
they were
top
40,
shelf.
They were $40 tequila drinks, and he got doubles each time. So I was like, all right, perfect. There we go, Tio.
I had two doubles.
The second moment is I showed you this picture. I don't know if you remember seeing the picture, but a coach that will not be named was at the wedding, and I have a very incriminating photograph of him wearing a wig before his wife took him home from the wedding. So I will show you that one day. It will never see the light of day beyond that. It will never leave my phone. I will never send it to anybody, but it's one of the 5 funniest pictures I think I've ever seen in my life.
It's an elite situation.
The third moment was probably my favorite moment. It was about 30 minutes before we headed back to the hotel for some late night pizza. Everybody's out on the dance floor. Me and Tio are out there cutting up a rug, and we're there. I got to dance with Mama Fanta in. It was great. And we're sitting there dancing with you, John, and you took a step. You stepped in someone's spilled drink. Bam! You hit the floor. And before anyone even noticed, before anyone came around, boop, we pulled you right back up, and you were right back to dancing. Like nothing ever happened. It was one of the smoothest moves I've ever seen for somebody falling right on their face.
Yeah, you went down and we picked you up. It couldn't have been more than 1.8 seconds. I mean, it was elite timing. We grabbed you, and it wasn't like one of those situations where like John's out of hand. The floor was wet. Yeah. So like you could we reached down, we grabbed you, and you hopped right back on beat.
No, in spirit of hoops, we should have had a Swiffer guy that night.
That would have been good.
We needed a mop guy.
We needed a mop guy there.
We badly needed a mop guy. Well, I'm glad you guys had a blast because we absolutely did. And what a day it was! What a night it was! It was really, really something. I mean, they tell you. Everybody, so here I have a couple of takeaways. Number one, if I got another text message before 10 a.m. from somebody saying, take the day in, soak it all in, it's going to end quickly. It's like it's the most cliche phrase you could send someone. And and I didn't look at it that way because I did take several moments to soak everything in. But oh my God, guys. I must have had 50 text messages in the morning. And I was joking with my groomsmen. I'm like, here's another one. Like every text was, hey, man. Like not even, some of them weren't even congratulations. Hey, man, take the day in, soak it all up. And a couple of text messages said, take the day in, soak it all up. Because after that, it's all downhill from there. I mean, it was just funny reading how people, reading people's perspectives. The other takeaway I have is before even checking into the hotel, before I checked into the hotel, because I stayed at the hotel the night before, got ready and all that. I'm getting contact from my wife's family, Victoria's family, and they're saying, oh, there was this southern bald guy in the hotel lobby. He couldn't have been more helpful with our stuff. Who is he? And what's he do? Who is he and what's he do? I go, well, that's Terrence Oglesby, because there's not another southern bald guy that was invited to the wedding. And they're like, oh, he was so nice. He helped us with our boxes and our bags and our favors. I'm like, is T.O. the Hampton Inn, Fairfield, New Jersey bellman? Or no, you were very helpful to my wife's family, and they really appreciate you. They couldn't stop talking about you helping them at the hotel.
Well, they were very nice. You married into a very nice family, and they I met them as soon as I was checking in. They were great. And their room was like 3 or 4 right down from ours. But I helped them move a couple of things. I grabbed Mama Fanta, brought her on the dance floor, got her moving a little bit. And then, oh gosh, what was the other thing? And then it was amazing how many people showed up for you, like big name people, like a lot of them. It was awesome all the way around. It was
surprising.
Just so much fun.
You're humbled, you're flattered. We're beyond grateful and thankful that you guys both came. It meant a lot to me that you both came and that you both were there. And it was hard. It's hard to put together an invite list and get all and do the planning. I had less than 10% to do with it. All the great things about the wedding, the credit goes to my wife because she made it happen. Vicky knows everything about everything and was on top of it. As you guys know, it's your better half is truly your better half. But it was,
hey, you know who wasn't on top of it? Dauster forgot his freaking pants.
Yeah, I was going to tell that story.
How did you forget a pants?
I didn't forget the pants. So here's, I didn't forget the pants. All right. I landed.
You forgot the pants.
Wear any?
I landed.
They were in Chicago.
Wednesday night, I was in Chicago. Okay. Wednesday night, I was in Chicago. And we had the Hall of Fame celebration dinner thing. So I flew back Thursday morning from Chicago. And I was just going to wear the same suit. Right. Like all I did was go to a dinner and sit at a dinner and eat a dinner in that suit. And I was like, I'm just going to wear it again because to be frank, the other suit that I had, belt didn't connect anymore. Might be time to lose a couple LBs. So I take it out of the suit bag. Right. And as I'm leaving to get in the car to drive it to the wedding, I hung it on like in our little mud room. There's like a little coat rack thing, right? So I hung it there. I grabbed the suitcase. I put the suitcase in the back of the car. I grabbed the hanger and I hung the hanger up in the back seat of the car. I get in the car and I drive, and didn't think twice about it. Didn't realize that the pants had slid off the hanger and were now lying on the mudroom floor while I was 2 hours north, getting ready to go to the wedding. I realized this 45 minutes before I was supposed to be at the ceremony, right? And I'm like, I called T.O. I was like, dude, I'm screwed. Can I wear like a suit jacket and shorts? They match. It actually works. He's like, are you Dwayne Wade? No, I'm not Dwayne Wade. So I ran over to what's the mall that's right over there? It's like 3 miles from the hotel. Yep. There's some big old mall. So I run in, I go to a Macy's. Yeah, that's what it was. So I go in, I go to the Macy's. I just grab like, okay, this is not normally my size. Yeah.
Flying.
Yeah. It wasn't. I wasn't.
He got
safe.
A suit that fit, like, which was shocking enough.
Yeah. So I just grabbed it. I was like, these are my normal sizes. Please let this work. Got back to the hotel, put it on, and then just booked it to the ceremony. I made it 2 minutes after the start of the ceremony. So I didn't see the tears when she walked down the aisle. I heard about the tears when she walked down the aisle. I didn't see the tears when she walked down the aisle, but I was there for all of the important stuff at the wedding. I made it. I survived, man. I got there. I got it done.
That is an incredible amount of effort by you. I commend you. And by the way, that's the other note on everything is that my bride showed up 20 minutes late. Now, that had to do with the transportation service not being able to get under a bridge, because if you think New Jersey and Newark and whatnot, that's not where this wedding was. This wedding was in the deep woods. If you put this wedding and you said, guess the state, you probably would have guessed somewhere in the Midwest. If you just the church, right? Just the church, you would have been like, where am I right now? It was in the deep woods of New Jersey.
Like the drive up to the church, I would have said, like, you're in the mountains of Western Pennsylvania.
Right. So as a result, the trolley service had a little bit of trouble maneuvering through bridges and all that stuff. So she was running late. But guys, I don't have my phone. I don't have anything.
She's out.
I
thought she was done. Runaway bride. You know, like T.O., you know this. Rob, you know this. You know, like the mid-major coaches' locker rooms for the visitors? I was in a room that size, looking at a kitchen sink for about an hour and 10 minutes, doing nothing. I couldn't leave. I didn't have my phone. I didn't have anything. I stood in that back room and I reflected
on my journey to this point. And by the end of it, I'm like, either she's going to show up or this is going to be the biggest embarrassment since Purdue lost to FDU.
Oh, hey, why were you in a room by yourself? They had you in solitary confinement? Are they just making sure that you weren't going to make a run for it?
Well, my mom was there, but she's talking about all different kinds of things.
Yeah.
And you're so locked into what's about to happen, you can't even think about anything else. So she was, but yeah, no, you're like a hermit for the minutes leading up to it. And I got to give credit before I let you both. The last thing I just want to say is now you both know
where it all comes from,
where the speaking comes from, because I have got to commend my uncle, Father Tom. That is the best homily I have ever heard in my life.
Oh, he lit you up a couple times too.
Yes,
he did. A couple times. The funniest part of his speech was he said that he would come home and you'd be playing Madden and you'd have it on mute and you'd be
my brother said that.
Yeah, you'd be announcing the games of Madden while you're sitting there with it on mute by yourself. I was like that. I could just picture a 12-year-old Fanta doing that. That is too perfect. Too perfect.
Hey, one more thing too, because I forgot it a second ago. It just slipped my mind. But I got to go to breakfast with Fanta and all of his groomsmen, and now I know where it all comes from. Who's my man, the hot take artist that was sitting? Oh, he's elite. I love that guy.
So he's great. He wants to come to the Final Four, and I'm like, I don't know if I want you there, because if you come, they're going to get you on for 15 minutes to just rip me to shreds.
It's not going to be 15 minutes. We won't be able to slow him down.
Yep. The only other thing. Great.
So we have a problem. Wait, I have a problem. Well, go ahead. Were you going to say something? Can I tell you that? Not a problem.
Go ahead.
I got to tell you. My in-laws are coming to the Final Four potentially. So if they get on set, because I'm fearful that Goodman's going to have them sit down and start telling stories, and who knows where that could go. No, I love my in-laws. I love them, but Fanta, they want to come to the Final Four.
If you're worried about stories, like, you should be worried about you getting on there and telling your own stories. Okay. We remember what happened last year in Vegas. We remember the story that you told.
No comment.
Yeah, exactly. The only other thing I didn't realize, well, I realized it, but I didn't really put together, is how quickly T.O. becomes best friends with everybody, right? Like everybody. So when I got there, right, when I come back with my suit and I'm going to get changed, I'm like, T.O., you want to wait 1 second? I'll drive you. I was like, no, I'm good. I got my buddies over here. They're going to drive me over to the reception. And it was just too rare. Who was that?
It was one of the groomsmen's parents.
Yeah, it was just a random couple that he met at the hotel bar. He's like, yeah, they're going to drive me over. I'm good.
Because of your personality, and it's so infectious. It's so great. And you really could be America's wedding crasher.
Yeah, it's not a goal of mine. No, but it was fun. It was fun. We had a good time, and it was amazing to me how many people were there. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
You ever seen Old School? He walked in like Frank the Tank. No, I got a big Saturday in the morning. We're gonna have to go to Bed Bath Beyond. I'll do one.
Yeah, I did one. I was like, yeah, I'll come in and say hello. And I talked to a couple of guys that were living in Nashville, and I was like, guys, I'm too old for this. You guys have fun. And I went to
and
sleep.
Then he started streaking up and down the hallway. Big news. The Almanac is officially back. The most exhaustive and comprehensive guide to the 2023-24 college basketball season is available for pre-order now. If you go to cbbalmanac.com, link is in the description below, you can pre-order for just $15.99 or 20% off the sticker price. The format is going to be a little bit different this season. Instead of an 850-page PDF, you'll be getting access to the full site with league-by-league PDFs available for download. The preview will be live on September 20th, so you have until then to be able to get your pre-orders in. So for insight for all 362 Division I teams, from their head coaches and the experts that cover them, make sure you hit that link. All right, let's talk a little college basketball stuff. Before we get into TO trying to turn the NCAA tournament into 128 teams, Pac-12 is effectively gone, right? Like it's the Washington State and Oregon State are going to try to fight to keep this thing together, and who knows what ends up happening with that. But for all intents and purposes, the league that we knew as the Pac-12 is no longer, and it's just kind of sad to me. There's two ways that I look at it. One, it's sad that like this bastion of West Coast basketball no longer exists, right? The idea of Pac-12 after dark no longer really exists. But at the same point, I think that if what this does is create situations where we can get like UCLA playing Michigan or Arizona playing Kansas, or these two massive brands that can kind of cut through all the noise and create a matchup at some point, maybe December, maybe January, maybe early February, when most people are paying attention to football. Like that could be something where you can cut through the noise and have it be focused on college basketball and have a big college basketball moment when it's not just March. And I'm kind of torn on whether or not that is a net positive. I don't know where I stand. I don't know where you guys stand. I don't think I've actually talked with you guys about this. So Fanta, I'll open up the floor to you. The Pac-12 is dead. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's certainly unfortunate because you're still talking about what college sports has been built on, traditions, those regional rivalries, and the different, just the aura that different leagues that we've grown up watching through the years that they entail. In my opinion, the football gods are making a statement to those Pac-12 schools right now, because look at the Pac-12. In football, it leads all conferences in top 25 teams. How ironic that in the last year of the league as we've known it, that it leads every conference in football ranked teams. Let's turn to basketball. The fact of the matter is this. Pac-12 basketball has lost its allure. It's lost what would attract a fan to it. A lot of the majority of the games in the Pac-12 in recent years are not being watched by even the diehard college hoops fan. And if that sounds harsh, the reason why I'm saying it is because a very good portion of those games tip off at 10:30 Eastern time or later. Let's face it, guys. I know we're on the East Coast. I know somebody could say you're biased. But the fact is, the games haven't been worth staying up for. And the majority of the league in basketball watch a Pac-12 game. Is there any atmosphere or buzz in the building?
None.
For a good amount of these schools, there has not been in recent years. Now, the league had that 1 year, a couple of years ago, the COVID tournament where they performed great. They had multiple teams in the Sweet 16. They had teams making the Elite Eight. It was awesome for them. But I agree with you, Rob. To produce the better college basketball moment, this new look Big 12, which, if you look at the 2024-25 Big 12 in KenPom this past year, every single team fits within the top 77 of the KenPom rankings. That means you do not have a bad team in your league. So for college hoops, all this realignment, you can say that it stinks, and I'm not going to sit here and disagree with you because I get where you're coming from. But by the same token, I truthfully think that Pac-12 basketball had lost what it had, and we cannot forget that when the chips of UCLA and USC fell in the Big Ten, guys, it was only a matter of time until the other chips would fall. They did. The Big 12 capitalized. And frankly, USC and UCLA leaving for the Big Ten. Outside of Arizona, in the current state of the sport, because Oregon has not been good, right? In the current state of things, there just wasn't much that was going to excite me about the way the Pac-12 was structured without those two name brands. They were the first dominoes. These other schools going to the Big 12 makes the Big 12 Already college basketball's premier conference. You can't argue with their results in recent years. It just strengthened it even more. And you're exactly right. I get to watch Houston and Arizona in a league game. Are you kidding me? I get to watch Kansas and Arizona in a league game. That's going to be really cool.
The only concern I have with that, and Tio, I'm curious your opinion on this, is that it kind of dilutes what made the Big 12 so special. And I think that it's already happening with Houston and UCF and BYU and Cincinnati coming in, is that you no longer have the double round robin. Like that, to me, that's what made that league so awesome and made it so difficult. You had to play home and on the road against every single other team in the conference. The Big East has that right now. No other power conference in the country has that. And I think losing that is going to hurt more than some people realize, right? Like we're going to get one UCLA Arizona game every single year. I'm sorry, one Kansas Arizona game every single year, but you're only going to get one, as opposed to getting Baylor Kansas twice every season, right? As opposed to getting Kansas Texas twice every season. And I do think that is going to hurt a little bit more than people realize. Like I do feel like these leagues are starting to get a little bit bloated, and eventually I would not be shocked to see something happen where like you see these conference schedules go to 24 games, go to 26 games, go to more, so you can pack more into that Big 12 TV deal, that Big 10 TV deal. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But that's the only place where I kind of look at it and say, okay, that's going to be a negative. Does that make sense, Tio?
Yeah. I mean, the double round robin, it was such a small conference that it allowed all 10 teams to be really good too, which, or, you know, that's kind of where I could see it's a bit of a downer. But from a basketball perspective, the schools I asked, the top end ability, if you get them to the top end, could be really, really fun. So that league in and of itself is going to be awesome. Arizona, I feel like Cincinnati definitely has that high end ability to start getting high level recruits and really start going. The Big 12 to me, I thought from a basketball perspective was far and away the biggest winner. I just, college football, I get the world's run by football, but I think the Big 12 is just going to be so much fun to watch. As far as realignment's concerned, I think the arrogance of the Pac-12 offices ended up killing them. It was just pure and simple, their arrogance. And you always want to be two or 3 years ahead of the curve. I think whenever they signed these digital deals with the Pac-12 network and all that stuff, I think they were too far ahead of the curve to where it wasn't, they were trying to get you digital networks and do all the stuff online to where you could stream it. And they were doing what a lot of people are doing now, but they did it too soon to where people couldn't comprehend the ability to get it there.
And they couldn't get it on the cable packages. Like how many people had a nightmare actually getting the Pac-12 network? I don't think I got it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like everybody could get it. But what I'm saying is it wasn't the norm 10 years ago or 12 years ago, whenever they started to initiate that thing. And I think they were too far out in front of it. And they were too arrogant to realize their mistake to backtrack and figure it out.
I agree with that. And I also, I know that they didn't have a choice. Well, they had a choice, but for them, it's beneficial. But to me, guys, the Cal Stanford, I'm just not going to be able to ever see them in the ACC. That is going to be a major, not to mention SMU. That to me, out of all these things, there's always something just crazy that happens, bizarro world.
It's a contingency plan.
Yeah. I mean, I got to be honest with you. Like, not only is it bizarre, but I just don't see what they add other than numbers.
No, that's it.
It's a contingency plan for if Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina take off. Then
you to make sure that they don't end up being the Pac-12. That's all.
Yeah, and you're still standing at 15 teams if those three defect. That's what it is. That's what it is. And if we're going to keep the NCAA model, I think Stanford brings a lot of value. I think Cal brings some value elsewhere, not as far as money's concerned, but SMU, to me, that's the interesting one. Because I don't think they're taking anything. I think they're just completely footing their own bill just because they want to play higher levels of football, which I think's really interesting because there's a lot of money down there, and they could find ways to compete sooner rather than later.
I was in Dallas this weekend, and all over the city there are billboards that just have the SMU Mustang logo, a little X, and the ACC logo all over the place down there. So the folks are excited about SMU moving to the ACC. All right, T.O., floor is yours, man. You want to expand the NCAA tournament. You want to make it be 128 teams. You want to make it be 256 teams. You want to make sure that every single team in Division I college basketball gets an invite to the NCAA tournament. So
make it 128. Make it 128. Add that first game at home, and then the NCAA can make even more money because of all that money that they need. Now, here's my thing. A quarter of the teams is typically what's preferred by the NCAA, and I don't think you're going to lose any quality of games. And the reason I say that is if you make every college conference in college basketball get their regular season champion and their tournament champion, a lot of times who's winning these mid and low major tournaments, they're not necessarily the best team. And some of those guys are moving forward and winning games in the NCAA tournament. There's more really good teams because in general, there's a lot more talent in the NCAA. There's more than there's ever been. Mm-hmm. So I think if you continue to expand the tournament, add more teams, make it regular season and postseason champs for the league, there's no reason. The quality of play is not going to go down. The upsets aren't going to not happen. You add a couple of these mid to low major conference teams, they're going to get beat because these mid-major teams can play. Like, for example, Furman wins the Southern Conference. There's several other teams in that league that could have won a game or two. I'm just throwing that in there. If you're trying to tell me Bucky McMillan and Samford couldn't have figured out a way to get an upset, you're wrong. Like, there's a lot of teams that'll give some of these high majors fits just because, let's be honest, guys, there's just more good teams available.
So here's my idea, and tell me what you guys think about this. If you expand it, you either go to 80 or you go to 96. You make it a requirement that the regular season champion and the tournament champion have to they both get automatic bids. If you win both, you're automatically in the field of 64. And then what you do is with the rest of those teams, you either have a pool, if it's 80 teams, you have a pool of 16. If it's 96 teams, you have a pool of 32. And you create 4-team tournaments, either 4 of them if it's 80 or 8 of them if it's 96. And you have those 4 teams for the rest of the end of the at-large bids play a 2-team tournament at the highest seeds, the highest rankings, like local, whatever it is, right? And you play for the 10 and the 11 seeds. And that's what you do. So
I'm sure that made sense. I'm sure that made sense in your head, but all I can think about is the Zach Galifianakis gif where it's like, oh yeah, that's like that. Like that's all I could picture.
Well,
right
just think about it like this. So the 4 playing teams from last year, right? Instead of having them play 2 games for 2 spots, you take those 4 teams, you put them in a pod, you put them at a neutral site. Let's just say you played at the Palestra in Philadelphia, right? And you have them play a 4-team 2-day tournament. Right. And whoever wins that tournament gets to go and be the 11th seed in one of the regions. Right. And you have 4 of those, or you have 8 of those different pods and 8 of those different tournaments. And you can either do that on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, or you turn that into the new first weekend of the NCAA tournament and push everything back a week and get a whole extra week of the madness in. Does that make sense?
Sure.
It makes sense. I do think that the NCAA tournament, as much as it pains me to say this, will expand because it's going to have to, because the Big Ten sent 9 teams to the NCAA tournament this past year, or rather in 2022 and 2021. Okay. 9 teams to the NCAA tournament. Now the Big Ten is adding UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon. What's that going to do? It's not going to stop it at 9. It's going to be 10 or 11.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, your bubble is only going to get more complex, and you're going to get to a point where the whole reasoning of why you took one team as opposed to another That margin's going to be so thin that it's impossible to justify what you did there. And I think that's where a committee has to save themselves and say, we need some more slots. It's hard enough to select this field. Now you have all this realignment happening. You're going to have some of these leagues, like you just said, Rob, unbalanced scheduling is going to make cases very complex, at least in these double round robins, like the Big 12 had. You were able to say, here's exactly what a team did against these two opponents, these teams that are in the NCAA tournament. Here's what another team did when they had the same opportunities. You may not have that, and you're going to have some variance to who your regular season champion ends up being potentially. We could be sitting there saying one team had this schedule, the other team had this schedule. It's not all the way down the middle where we haven't said that before. I think that they're going to have to expand. I think I'm in favor of 80 to start.
I agree.
80 to start. Start with 80. Let's see how it is. And then you go from there. Here's my thing, Tio. I know you want 128. Okay. But
he just wants carnage. Fanta. That's all he wants.
Carnage.
I want all the madness.
But my thing is, I want all the madness too. But I don't need to watch two middle to lower tier power conference teams square off in a game.
That's what you get in the first four.
And I have a hard enough time watching those games.
Okay.
So now you're giving guys, seriously, did you watch the entirety of the first four this past year? It was very hard to watch one of the games.
I did. I watched every second of all four games because
I did too, but I struggled
because I'm a fucking sicko, Fanta. Yeah. I'm not going to say I enjoyed it. Okay. I'm not saying that I enjoyed it. I did watch every second of all of those games.
I did too. And I'll probably watch the seconds of all the other games, but I don't want and this is what it's going to be. The expansion is for the NCAA to keep the football hungry conferences from disbanding and making their own event.
Yes. Yeah. And the reason why I say that you should have it be a play-in situation is that it rewards the mid-major teams by allowing them to be able to get directly in. And then it takes all of the lower end of the at-larges. And you, instead of having to worry about this team was a mid-major regular season champion and they couldn't get an at-large bid, blah, 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 then that takes that out of the equation, right? Then if you have the mid-major regular season champ that gets the automatic bid, then they're in the tournament. And then you can allow all of these mid-tier teams, the Iowa States that go 7-11 in the Big 12 and the teams that kind of are that level, you let them play their way in, right? You don't have to worry about whether or not they are going to be able to get a high enough seed. And it kind of takes a little bit of that out of the equation, if that makes sense. Because here's my question. Would you rather be the low at-large bid that's got to play 2 games to actually get in the field, or be the mid-major regular season champion that's got a lower seed, but you're already in there? I think I'd rather be the lower seed, right? It's already in there.
Yeah, just put me in there. I don't care how you get in there. Just get me in there.
Yep. All right. Let's get to the Big East. It's the league that I think, fair to say, the three of us, well, at least Fan and I know the best, and T.O., you have been adopted.
I'm right there at it. I'm right there. I'm probably not. I'm probably not at your guys' level, but I'm right there. I'm close. Yep.
Even though you didn't know who Ethan Rocky was until I had to send you a YouTube video the other day. I'll forgive you for that.
Is that the fat lumberjack?
Yes, he's the fat lumberjack, man. Come on. Ethan Rocky is a college basketball legend.
He could shoot it.
Hey, look, if you go back and you watch clips of Ethan Rocky on Synergy TO, you will love this dude.
I saw it. I watched it.
All he does is shoot 35-footers. He can't do anything else except fire up 35-footers. How do you not love it?
Day,
and he probably wasn't hefty. That was just back when big jerseys were in.
He was a little hefty though. And the big old beard, it just made him look a little bit chunky. There's a reason we called him the lumberjack. All right.
I'm sorry for calling him a fat lumberjack. I didn't mean it.
I think he'd be proud of that.
Well, okay.
I don't think he'd mind it. All right. So we got 5 burning questions from the Big East. We're going to kind of roll through this all here. Timer style, old school DTF podcast style. So I'm going to hit start here. The first question, Tio, we are going to you first on this one.
Awesome.
Who is the best team in the Big East this season?
There's only one answer, and it's Marquette. It's point blank, period. They won the regular season last year. They won the Big East tournament. And I understand UConn won the national championship, but UConn lost a lot. And they went from really old to really young really fast. So I have some concerns. I really like UConn. However, for conference play, give me Marquette. Tyler Kolek comes back, reigning Big East Player of the Year. Cam Jones, one of the best scorers. We've harped on that, averaged over 15 points a game. Oso Ighodaro is the best passing 5-man in the Big East. Like, they're just so versatile offensively in what they can do, and they can score from so many different spots. Look, I understand they lost Omax. He averaged 12.5 points a game, but some of the things that he really does well, I think, are fairly replaceable. He shoots it well. He's a big forward who can guard multiple spots. Chase Ross can guard multiple spots. Stevie Mitchell is one of the best defensive perimeter players in the conference. They have guys. David Joplin played really well in the Big East tournament. Like, they have guys that can kind of slide over and fill that role. Maybe not to the same effect as Omax defensively, but I don't think there's going to be this massive drop off. And while everybody went and added people in the portal, Marquette knows what they are from day one. So they're going to be able to win a lot of games early in the season and really get that net ranking up, if you will. And they're freshmen. While they are freshmen, Trey Norman and was it Amadou that they added, they're very talented. I'm a big fan of Trey Norman. Played for BABC.
I think those freshmen are going to play very limited minutes just because when you
that's the crazy part, because I think Trey Norman, you go somewhere else, and I don't want him to go somewhere else. I'm going to go to Marquette because that's where he's at, and I want him to stay. He could have played immediately, but he is a guy that if he just stays there, he's going to be really, really good. And they already know what they are. That's kind of the thing. He can learn from Tyler Kolek. He can learn from some of these other guys, Cam Jones. Marquette's good again. And they say it's a big man's game. I'm not necessarily sure that's true. If you can score it and you can handle it and you don't turn it over, it's going to be hard to beat Marquette.
Can you make an argument for anybody else, Fanta? For Creighton, for UConn? Can you make an argument for either of those teams as the best team in the league?
I can make it for Creighton. And
do it.
I think that Marquette will be the preseason favorite in this league, but I'll make the case for Creighton to be interesting. Here's why. Ryan Kalkbrenner is the big man. He is an elite rim protector. Yep. He's an All-American candidate. He is a 2-time Conference Defensive Player of the Year in a tough league. You don't see 2-time Defensive Player of the Year award winners come back again, and he is back. So Greg McDermott has his guy down low. Remember when Kalkbrenner missed time for Creighton last year? Remember when he played for Creighton? The difference in their results is staggering. It's mind-blowing. They couldn't win without that kid. When he was on the floor, all they did was win. So much so that I think we'd all be making more cases for Creighton had one possession changed against San Diego State in Louisville. Having said that, Baylor Shireman, I thought it took him a little bit of time to fully become a Creighton Blue Jay. I thought the process was right. Greg McDermott was setting him up for success. Guys, when the calendar turned to January, everything clicked. I expect that to now be clicking in November. Trey Alexander is one of the best shot makers in college basketball. Full stop. I believe that. I think that he is a guy that can be a pro. I like that he comes back to Creighton. I think he'll have the ball in his hands even more because as good as Creighton was last year, and they were really good, if not great, they had a couple of players that were ball stoppers, for better or worse. I think Arthur Kaluma is a really talented player. I think he's going to find more success at Kansas State because I think Jerome Tang will use him differently. The same could be said for Ryan Nembhard. I sensed a little bit of frustration at times because Nembhard and Alexander were figuring out who's going to have the ball in these key situations. Creighton's not going to have that issue anymore. Stephen Ashworth is a Creighton player. He's old, seasoned, doesn't turn the ball over. He's going to fit perfectly into what Greg McDermott wants to do. If the Blue Jays get production out of the combination of Mason Miller, Fred King, and Isaac Trout, the Virginia transfer, if they get production in some way, shape, or form at the 4 spot, this team can go to the Final Four.
I agree with all of that. I love the idea of them having three basically point guards on the floor at the same time, all of whom shoot better than 40% from three, all of whom averaged between 2.5 and 5 assists this past season. I think Mason Miller is going to be the guy that gets the first shot at the four for him. I would throw Jason Green in that conversation as well, a guy that he hasn't gotten much conversation this offseason. Real quick, I'm going to make the argument for UConn as the best team in the league. I do think that, for the record, I think it's Marquette before people say, oh, you're such a UConn homer. Marquette is the best team in the league.
I
Creighton
agree.
is the second best team in the league. I'm going to make the argument for UConn here. They're bringing back Tristan Newton, fifth-year senior. I think is the guy that really figured out what it takes to be able to score at this level down the stretch of last season. Samson Johnson will be able to do some of the same things that Andre Jackson did offensively. He's not the impact defensively, but the long athletic driver, can spray balls around, can really pass it. I think he'll have real value for UConn offensively. Alex Caravan is an underrated asset at the 4. I think that we're going to be talking about him as a potential second round pick, top 40-ish kind of a pick by the end of the season. Obviously, Donovan Clingan's there. I think people are going to be surprised at his ability to be a pick and pop threat this season. And then, 7-3 lob target. He's so good defensively. The addition of Cam Spencer, I think, has been underrated nationally because of what he is as a positional defender, what he is as a passer and a ball mover. Everyone talks about him as a shooter. He's averaged at least 3 assists all 4 seasons he's been in college. He averaged 13 points a game on a Rutgers team that played very slow basketball last season. He's made big shots. He's from a family of athletes.
He got juntos, dude. He hit shots at the end of games big time.
Yes. And he has a worse record on dunks than Terrence Oglesby did in his college career. He makes Terrence look athletic. I think that they have talent on the bench. Now, it's young talent. Solo Ball and Jalen Stewart both were banged up this offseason, so they're still kind of playing catch up a little bit right now. To me, the key to this team is going to be the development of those 2 freshmen. Jaden Ross, I'll throw in that conversation as well. That they're really high on Jaden Ross. They think that he's got like NBA potential. Samson Johnson. What made UConn so effective last year was you had the Big East Player of the Year that only needed to play 26 minutes a game. Adama Sanogo, or I'm sorry, the NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player only needed to play 26 minutes a game because you could bring in this other guy that could play his balls off for 14 minutes, not worry about fouls, not worry about getting tired. If Samson Johnson can be that guy, I think UConn's got a chance. Best bet, they probably finish 3rd in the league, I would say. All right. Question number 2. Fanta, we're going to you first on this one. Who is the most underrated team in the Big East right now?
Wow. Villanova. Because if they're not a top 3 team in the Big East, that's a really talented team outside the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Moore, guys, I'm telling you right now, I think he wins Big East Player of the Year, and I think he's an All-American. There you go.
You know what's crazy about that? I can make a pretty strong argument that he's the second best player on that team behind Eric Dixon. That tells you how good Villanova is.
Wow, that's a really interesting argument that I would love to listen to. Here's the thing. This team really excites me. The question is simple. Can Kyle Neptune get them to all come together and mesh and make it all work? Because I really think, guys, if Jay Wright was the coach of this team, you would have them in the top 3 in the Big East.
We would just have them. If Jay Wright was the coach,
have them one.
We'd have them one.
You would have them
figure
one.
it out.
You would have them one. If Jay Wright was heading them up, I would have them one.
So I guess the point then is, all right, that's fine. I don't disagree with you. But if this team is outside the top 3 in the Big East with that much talent, then yeah, I do consider them underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Tyler Burden and TJ Bamba produce the level that we think they're capable of, there seems to be pretty solid buzz coming out of Villanova about Lance Ware and what he's done since he got to campus. That it's just different. He feels different. He feels better. He's going to obviously get an opportunity to play. And maybe that ends up being great for him. At the end of the day, he was recruited to Kentucky. Let's call it what it is. He's got the tools. He's got to see everything pan out. Hakeem Hart was an underrated NCAA tournament experience. But guys, the team that Villanova was in the final month of the season, UConn stopped them. Rob, your UConn team, that Saturday night game in Wells Fargo, that stopped the momentum for the Cats. If they don't play UConn that Saturday, I'm convinced they could have beaten anybody else in the league at the time. UConn kind of needed the game. They got it, and they pulled them ahead. I think Villanova is underrated. I am not ready to sit here and say that they're just a fourth or fifth or sixth place team in the Big East Conference with Justin Moore, because you could have questions about Kyle Neptune. You could have questions about whether or not everything pans out. But I know this much. When Justin Moore's on the floor in a Villanova uniform, you can't tell me that the team on the other side doesn't fear what he could do, like NFL teams fear a Mahomes or a Josh Allen.
Mahomes or Josh Allen's pretty that's a pretty big compliment. But what I will say is Justin Moore settles you down. If nothing else, like whenever he was able to come back, he wasn't 100%, but at the same time, it's almost like the whole Villanova team took a deep breath. If you look at their roster, there's so much to like. There's so much like. TJ Bamba was a very good player last year at Washington State. He can score inside. He's super athletic. Hakeem Hart is a big switchable forward who can knock down some shots. Lance Ware is a super athlete that I'm curious to see what he does in a different system, because a lot of times in Cal's system, a guy like Lance Ware gets stuck in the dunker. So you don't really get to see the entire scope of what they can do. Not that that's a bad thing. He's just very good at that. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. If you look at another underrated team, are we going to look past Sean Miller and Xavier? Like they added some guys, huh?
Too many tough injuries.
Yeah, too many tough injuries. You're right. But I mean, they added a bunch too. I mean, there's a lot of guys. Now, if I'm missing an injury, just let me know, because there's so much going on. But Davion Knight, Western Kentucky, 16.5. Is he hurt?
No, they got the guards. It's Fremantle and Hunter that are questionable about whether or not they're going to play this season.
Well, here's another thing with that. What they added 2 European kids, one big kid here recently, and another one. We have no idea. No idea.
Based on what I've heard is that the kid from Lithuania is most likely to have the biggest impact early, just because he's 22, he's got 1 year left. What the comparison that Sean made to me was like, imagine an Ivy League kid transferring up to the Big East for his last season of eligibility. He'll be a good role player slotting at the 4.
But when you have guards that can score like that,
yes, that's really all you need.
Yeah.
The Lazar Djokovic, the kid from I believe he is Serbian.
Is he Croatian or Serbian?
I don't remember. He's somewhere in the Balkans. He's a guy that probably has the highest ceiling and is the most similar to what like Zach Fremantle is, but he's also 19. It's going to take him a little bit of time. And then the big kid, I think it's Sasa Siani, is just a big body. Like he's going to come in and help and rebound, and he's 20 years old already. So all 3 of them will play. All 3 of them will have an impact. We didn't mention Providence yet for the most underrated teams.
I was going to let you have it, because you need to gain ground with the Providence fans. So I was going to let you have it.
Look, Devin Carter and Bryce Hopkins could very well both be first team All Big East players. Bryce Hopkins is the best forward in the league. If I'm wrong on that, please let me know. He's the best forward in the league. He's the best 4-man in the league. I think Devin
Carter, gone, yes.
Yeah. I think Devin Carter is the best on-ball defender. All due respect to Stevie Mitchell. I think Devin Carter is the best on-ball, kind of one-on-one, shut down corner, so to speak, defender in the conference.
No
I think
Posh?
Garway, huh?
No Posh. We're not throwing Posh in there.
I mean, you could put Posh in there if you want, but he plays for Butler. Like, are we having? Sorry, Butler. I'm just kidding.
Ooh.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
It's not a joke. He's serious.
I still think it's Devin Carter. I think that Garway Dual is a guy that by the end of the season, we're going to be talking about potential like first round ability. I think that from what I've heard coming out of there, like we got to have real conversations about like this being the breakout year for Corey Floyd. Like, I think he's got a real shot. And then the pieces that Kimmy brought with him from George Mason, I do believe are going to be good role players in the Big East. I wonder about the point guard spot. Like that to me is a big concern. And the same thing that we talked about with Kyle, like if you gave Ed Cooley this roster, we'd be talking about them as like number 1, number 2 in the Big East. It's the same kind of a thing where like we all believe in Kimmy, kind of got to see him do it before you go all the way in. But I think there's a real possibility where Providence, we look up and they're a top 15 team in February. And I think that there's a real possibility that like they finish first or second in this conference, right? It's a tough league. There's a lot to get through, but you're biting your lip.
Well, here's the thing.
I don't agree.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me why.
Go ahead, Terrence.
You're talking about number 1 or number 2 in the conference. If Cooley was there, Josh Oduro was good in the A10, but like this Big East is a lot more physical league. And the A10 was down last year. Justin Fernandez was a highly recruited kid out of high school. He was like a top 125 kid or whatever.
ACL. I don't know if he's going to play.
Okay, so he's gone. Devontae Gaines, is that the ticket? They call him the ticket.
Gaines, yeah.
I saw him once last year. He was fine. Will McNair, three.
He's gone. Will McNair's gone. They brought in another freshman.
Fine. They're all fine. And Gary Dwell.
But all I'm saying, Tio,
they're fine.
All I'm saying is that when you combine 2 guys that could be first team all league with a bunch of players that are fine, as long as those players that are fine buy into, like if Ticket Gaines buys into the idea that I got to defend and I got to make catch and shoot threes, like he can do that and he can do that well enough. Now, I'm not saying that they are going to finish first, like, because there's also a possibility that this is an NIT team if it doesn't all work out. But I can tell myself a story and I can get to the idea that this is a top 15, top 4 seed kind of a team in the Big East this season. I don't think that that's crazy to say.
Hey, I love Providence as much as the next guy. That's not true.
Well, here's the thing.
Hey, Friar fans, listen up.
It's not true, guys.
I know you guys love Terrence, and you hate me.
Rob, they know.
Who's on the bandwagon this year? Who's on the bandwagon this year?
Hey, well, there's just so many new moving parts. Now, I will say I'm a fan of Rafael Castro. I think he's a very talented kid.
Yes.
That Big East is loaded. They're not winning the Big East.
It is
well,
loaded, man.
They're not winning.
It's crazy. Like they might be 6th in the preseason poll. Like it's crazy how good the top of this league is. And oh, by the way, Fanta, we haven't talked about Rick Pitino yet.
Well, we have not, and we'll get, and that deserves its own segment and its own YouTube video because it will get the traffic. We know that much. But let's talk Providence here for a moment. So here's my thought. Okay, I actually am going to go against you in the way that you don't think. I think if Ed Cooley were the coach still at Providence, I don't think this team would finish first or second either. Okay, because I just don't think. I think that this is a good team. I think Providence is good. I think if Kim English finishes first or second in the Big East, he should be up for National Coach of the Year. Yeah. That's how great of a year he would have. The Big East could be the best conference in college basketball. If Kim English is that good, he should be up for National Coach of the Year. I like this team. I think Bryce Hopkins could be Big East Player of the Year, and it wouldn't surprise me. Devin Carter is excellent. We knew he was good defensively. The player he's become on the offensive end of the floor is really something. He's developed his game. He works his ass off. He's a good player. This comes down for me to Corey Floyd, if he is, in fact, the breakout guy, Jaden Pierre becoming that Big East point guard, reliable, playmaker, making things happen, look good on their foreign tour. It was a foreign tour, but he looked smooth. He did the right things. Josh Oduro is the guy that, if he's able to handle it, Terrence, I know you said it's a question, A10 to Big East. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
If Oduro comes into Providence and is able to fight and is able to compete and win battles in the paint, then I could see Providence being a top 3 team in the Big East. I think that this team is somewhere between 4 and 6 in the Big East, can very well finish in the top 5. But I think if you say that you could see them finishing first or second, this isn't about Providence as much as it is they compete in a league that sent 3 to the Sweet 16 last year. And I know Friar fans will say, we could have been there. Our coach the last month of the season had other stuff going on. I'm not going to sit here and disagree with you on that either. The last month of the season, it's clear now that Ed Cooley had his head in different spaces. The fact is, Marquette's in the Big East. Creighton's in the Big East. And the defending national champion UConn Huskies are in the Big East. And we just all said, did we all just agree? Or am I wrong? That you could argue Villanova has the most on-paper talent of all these teams? On-paper talent. Do they?
Yeah,
close. Do
they? Yeah. As a whole, correct. As a whole,
that's why it's not fair. I'm getting fired up now.
I like it.
Here. That's why I'm sitting here saying I
post-honeymoon Fanta. Post-honeymoon Fanta.
I like Providence, but I don't know if it's fair to put that level on them. I think they're an NCAA tournament team. I think they're a top 25 to 30 team in the country.
Yeah, probably. I think that's the most likely outcome. Yeah. All right. So
hold on. Counterpoint. That we are putting a lot of weight on Josh Oduro's shoulders for them to be that good.
He's got big shoulders. He's got broad shoulders.
Tim English thinks
but he doesn't.
Wrong.
He's 6'9", 235, guys. Like in the A10, that's big, right? A10, that's a pretty big guy. All right. So just arbitrary situation. I went down one team alphabetically. Who's that? That's St. John's. How big's Joel Soriano? 6'11",
265.
How big's Ryan Kalkbrenner? 7'1", 255. How big is Donovan Clingan? Like, it's a whole different level. I know it doesn't seem like a huge
all right. Let me ask you this, Tio. Who won?
It is
Tio. Who won the Big East last year?
Marquette.
How big is Oso Ighodaro?
That's different.
And
lawyered. Hey, even so,
lawyered.
Even so, okay. So even so,
lawyered.
Oso Ighodaro operates on the perimeter. Has Josh Oduro proven he can guard on the perimeter consistently?
I'm going to go ahead and say yes because I want to win the argument.
All right. Gotcha.
All right.
Gotcha.
Tio, we're going to we'll roll through these last three pretty quickly. All right. Over under 1.5 years until Rick Pitino has St. John's as a title contender in the Big East.
A Big East title contender or a national championship title?
Big East title contender.
With so many teams in the league. All right. So with so many teams in the league, there's going to be a hodgepodge of games that are really, really close. That's when coaching comes into effect. And I'm just not going to doubt Rick Pitino.
So you're taking the under?
I think it's possible they could win the league this year. It's possible. I don't think it's probable. I think it's possible.
What the hell? Answer the question.
What are you talking about, Fanta?
You sound like a politician on the stage. Answer the question that he asked. It's over or under?
When you say contender, like win it or like be in the top 3 or 4?
Like head into February where they have a chance, like what Providence was the last couple of years, what UConn was the last couple of years, what Creighton's been the last couple of years. Like we're talking not just a team that might make the tournament. We're talking like they head in the stretch run, and if they win 6 in a row, they can win the league, kind of a deal. This year, next year, 2 years from now, how long do you think it takes? Will it happen?
They can be in the mix this year.
Okay. So it's going to take them to contend for a Big East championship. The answer is the over. St. John's is going to be a good team. Could be very good team. I'm curious to see how the rotation works because they've got enough players to form an offense and a defense, an 11-man unit on each side. They've loaded up their roster. They've got more than enough weapons. And having Dennis Jenkins eligible and good to go is big. I mean, Rick Pitino has said that. It's huge. Jordan Dingle's a bucket getter. RJ Lewis, I've heard nothing but good things about the way he's come in. Glenn Taylor, Simeon Wilcher, best freshman that St. John's has had in a decade.
Think about
all
this.
There.
Think about this. Naheem Aline, 3
Yeah.
years, averaged double figures at Virginia Tech, was a key piece to UConn's national championship run off the bench last year. He's probably not starting for
I didn't
St.
say
John's
his
this
name.
year.
Right.
Probably not starting this year.
Not to me, getting Chris Ledlam was huge.
Big.
Because now Soriano has competition in practice. Now Soriano is told, hey, man, if you're not playing well, you'll come off the floor. I'm going to be honest on Soriano for a moment. I like him. I think he's a good player. I also think he was a stat sheet stuffer on a team that didn't have anybody else in the front court to do that.
A lot of empty calories there.
What's that?
I said a lot of empty calories in those numbers that he put up.
Yeah, empty calories. I can relate to it. Having said that, the fact of the matter is St. John's is a good team. They're an NCAA tournament caliber team. St. John's hasn't won an NCAA tournament game since 2000. I think that drought ends this upcoming year. I just think when you're talking about Big East championship aspirations, you're disrespecting the top teams in this league and what they have back if you're now pegging the Red Storm at number one. So to answer your question, which was over under 1.5 years, the answer is over. I think a year from now, we could be talking about them as a title contender.
Yep, I agree with all that. Over under TO 2.5 years before Ed Cooley has Georgetown as a Big East contender.
I'm going over because I think year 3 is going to be the money year. I just think they've been bad for so long. He has to change everything from the ground up to where I think I'm not necessarily saying that St. John's has been phenomenal. I do think they were closer to being good than Georgetown was over the course of the year. I think that's a foregone conclusion. I think over though, because this is a ground up situation.
Fanta?
Over. I think it's going to take maybe year 3 or year 4 until Ed Cooley has Georgetown as a Big East title contender. I think year 3 is the money year. I'm with Terrence. I really do. Big East title contender, year 3. NCAA tournament level team. Could they make the tournament in Cooley's second year? Yes, they could. Because here's the thing. 5, 7, 8 years ago, I skipped 6. I don't know why. You could sit here. Did you guys miss me? I'm just saying.
No, it was funny. It was funny. Keep going. Yeah, you're good.
You could say, oh, I think that 2 or 3 years from now, they're going to have it, right? Like Marquette's almost the traditional college hoops program team, whatever you want to call it, because they've had roster retention. No longer, like, isn't that the difficult thing with these power conference jobs and whatnot? Like, you can't say, oh, it's going to take 3 to 5 years, it could take 4 or 5 years. Like, no, because in one off season, if you've got the money now, you can become an NCAA tournament team.
Well, here the one thing I would say to that is, I think Ed did about as good of a job as you could have asked getting this team from like 2 wins in the Big East in the last 2 years to being something where we're probably looking at like a 7 or 8 win team in the Big East, maybe 6, somewhere in that area, right? Like they're probably the 8th best team in the conference, right?
And that AD should be thrilled if that's the case.
And I think the biggest thing with Georgetown is he's going to kind of have to do what he did at Providence in terms of developing a fan base, developing a home court, getting people excited about Georgetown basketball in the city. We don't need to rehash it again, but like finding a way to turn an NBA arena that is not anywhere near the campus and is difficult for students to get to into a home court where it's tough to play. And that's not going to be an easy thing for him to do. I think that the Shaka Smart schedule is probably something that is a little bit ambitious, but I think kind of if you're looking for a kind of a timeline, I think it's similar to that. All right, last thing I got for you. You got 30 seconds to answer this question, T.O. If you were starting a Big East program from scratch right now, and you had to pick one coach from the conference to run your program, who would it be and why?
It'd be between 2 people. It'd be between Shaka and Rick Pitino. Rick's done it. I like that Shaka incorporates everything from the ground up and keeps his guys. It gives familiarity with the program. The fan base jumps on. He has them fully on board. I love what he's done at Marquette. And then Rick has just won. So it kind of depends on how soon do you want to win? That's the big question.
It would be Shaka Smart for me.
Yep.
I think he is a guy that gets the Big East, leads the Big East, quickly has done that, and has built a culture. And I know that the counter argument would be, well, he hasn't had the major NCAA tournament run since VCU. But I always use the Brad Underwood phrase. And somewhere, Sleepers Media is going to roll their eyes at me, or, there'll be comments. But I'm going to use Daddy Brad's phrase. The key to making an NCAA tournament run is just making the NCAA tournament. I mean, you got to get there, and then it can come. And so for me, I think it's only a matter of time that Shaka Smart has Marquette in the second weekend. And once you get to the second weekend, guys, anything can happen from there. They could be if they're a Final Four team this upcoming year, you would call it as good of a 3-year progression for a program that we've seen in college basketball. Shaka's relationships oriented. He is smart. He is easy to work with, and his kids are fully bought in. I'm trying to build this program with a guy that I know will also be loyal. And I think at this stage of his career, Shaka Smart will be loyal to Marquette. I don't think he's looking to move.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love Shaka. Love all those points that you guys made. But I'll just push back. Like, if you want to be able to win immediately and you want to be able to get a program going from the ground up, and
I know
really
who you're picking.
You really want to find a way to get the answer, you got to go with Tony Stubblefield.
Oh.
Curveball.
No, to me, if you're
Sean
starting
Miller.
a program, if you're yeah, Sean would be great. Love Sean, but I think if you're starting a program from the ground up, like, nobody is better at just going out and figuring it out and winning right away with whatever he's got than Rick Pitino. Like,
Yeah.
you just kind of you go with one of the GOATs, you give him his 3 or 4 years to get the thing going, and then after he's got it going in 3 or 4 years, when he retires because he's like 76 years old, then you go hire
No Hurley.
a Sean Miller. He
just won a national championship.
But trust me, I love Dan.
Can't get him on the phone anymore, Rob. Can't get him on the phone.
I finally did. The day of Fanta's wedding, I got Hurley on the phone. Right before I had to go spend $40 on a shot of tequila.
Hurley won a national championship, changed his phone number.
Yeah, well, he was like, well, we can reschedule this. I was like, no, we got 10 minutes right now, and then I got to go hit the open bar at the Fanta wedding. And he was like, oh, okay, I got you. No, I think it's Rick Pitino, and then after that, you go out, and once you got the program rolling a little bit, then you can go hire a Hurley or a Cooley or a Shaka or a Sean Miller, or whoever it is that you want.
Dude, you can close your eyes and throw a dart and hit one. Hit a good coach in that league.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know what? We didn't even mention the fact that a guy that made it to the national title game, Thad Matta, who at Ohio State is the best program in the Big Ten for a 7-year stretch. He's in this conference. Shaheen Holloway took St. Peter's to the Elite Eight literally a year ago in 2022. And we didn't even mention him. So there's
underrated.
They are underrated.
Underrated going in this year. I think everybody is very down on Seton Hall. I'm not saying they're an NCAA tournament team, but I actually think that they could end up being a decent team in the Big East.
They're going to be a tough out. The kid they got from Boise State's pretty good. And Guy, he's a good player.
Yep. We'll see if Kadari Richmond decides to show up this season, because that's going to be the key to me. Anyway, this has been fun. It's been great to get back with you guys on the DTF podcast once again. Great to talk a little bit of Big East basketball. Great to talk about the Fanta wedding. John, I know it's time for you to go drown your sorrows. I don't want to hold you here any longer. So for Terrence Oglesby, for John Fanta, my name is Rob Dauster. We'll see you guys again next week. Maybe we'll talk about the Big Ten. Who knows? We'll see.